What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I want to talk a little bit about a few different topics, and I've had people in the comments asking me this question over and over and over again about different topics. So I'm going to go over the promises, some of the promises that were made by this current administration as well as the previous administration. So we're going to take a look at some of these different promises, and we'll see, and I'm going to talk and I'll give you kind of my opinion when it comes down to how they're going to move forward, or if they're going to move forward with these different promises. So we're talking about like a $200 raise for Social Security. We're talking about the forced stimulus check. We're talking about a child tax credit. We're talking about things like that. So that's what we're going to be focused on in this video. But first off, on this channel, we talk about financial news and what's going on in Washington, D.C. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell notification. That way you get notified anytime we put out a video. Okay, now before I even get started, every day, I'm in Colombia right now, I'm in Barranquilla. Every day there's a man out here that's selling avocados. Okay, so you're gonna hear him throughout this video saying aguacates. Okay, so he's trying to sell avocados, and I'm used to it now, but apparently in a video I did a couple days ago, you could hear him saying that, and people were asking in the comments what he was saying. I think I addressed it in the video as well, but I'm just addressing it now. So in the comments, you guys understand. He's selling avocados, and so he walks down the street yelling, aguacates, aguacate. Okay, so let's talk about the first promise that I think this was a big mistake. Now, this was something that did not get implemented. It actually passed the House, but it didn't go anywhere after that. Now, this was in the last administration, okay? So we're talking about 2020, they were talking about hero pay. They were talking about pay for the frontline workers. And it passed the House, but when it got to the Senate, it didn't go anywhere. This was prior to the second stimulus check. Okay, so this was that long summer when no one received a stimulus check, and then we had to go into December before that $600 stimulus check came out. And so the hazard pay, I think, was a huge mistake, and I think that's probably the reason why we're seeing people that are not as eager to go back to the same jobs. They're actually looking for different type of employment. They might be going to school to further their education. That way they can get better jobs. But I think a lot of people realize that the pandemic can shut a whole country down. The whole world got shut down, and so they want more stable employment. You can't. In some situations, if you work in the restaurant industry, you work on the front line, you might be in a situation where you're forced to work, or you might not have a job. And so it's really, not all jobs give you the pleasure of working from home. And if that's a situation where you can't work from home, and we're in another situation where we have a pandemic, then you're either going to be forced to work, or they're going to tell you that you're no longer needed and you don't have a job at all. So two extremes. So obviously people want to focus on job stability, and they want to focus on a job where they can work in an office or they can work at home and get the job done. So that's the first thing. The hero pay, the hazard pay, the frontline worker pay, that didn't go anywhere. And I think that was a huge mistake. Right now, the way things are looking right now, no one's talking about anything when it comes to hazard pay. No one's talking about frontline workers. So it's going to be a real hard fight to move forward with anything when it comes to hazard pay. The next thing I want to talk about, $200 raise for Social Security. Now, this was this administration. President Biden, along with some senators, were talking about $200 raise for Social Security. Now, we have not seen anything when it's come to that. No legislation as of yet. Now, understand this too, when it comes to the president can set an agenda, but the president cannot get legislation through Congress. Okay, he can set an agenda. He can say, this is what I want, but it's up to Congress to legislate. Congress needs to put the bill together, vote on the bill in the House, vote on the bill in the Senate, and then send it to the president for final signature. So the president can make a promise and say, I want this, I want that, $200 raise for Social Security is something that I want, but if Congress doesn't do anything about it, it's not going to go anywhere. And what we're seeing right now with a lot of the promises that the president made during the campaign season is we have Congress not not backing him up or not going along with some of the promises that he made. And so it makes it impossible for anything to get done. And then you have to also look at, okay, we have Democrats, we have Republicans, and they're going to fight against each other. And so if the president wants a $200 raise for Social Security, guess what? Republicans want to do everything they can to keep that from happening. Because if they can keep that from happening, then they can blame President Biden for not getting it done, or blame Congress, blame Democrats in Congress for not getting it done. But they're not playing a role in trying to help the situation. And so that's what we're looking at now. So $200 raise for Social Security, not on the table, not being talked about anymore. So I highly doubt that we'll see anything when it comes to that. I think that the focus or the push right now is to reform Social Security in such a way that in 12 years, the trust fund won't run out of money. I think that's the real focus right now when it comes to Social Security. Okay, next one here. Next promise, the president made this. You had some politicians making this as well. The student loan cancellation, okay? Now, President Biden has done some things when it comes to cancellation, targeted cancellation for some people. But across the board, $10,000 wiped off your student loans. We have not seen that yet. But as of right now, we're not hearing much about that. But I will say this is something that the president can do. Okay, so the president can do this through executive order. So this is up to the president. This is no longer Congress. Congress can do it if they want, but he doesn't have to rely on Congress for this. He can wipe out $10,000 if he wants to wipe out $10,000 for everyone who has a student loan debt. He can do that on his own. And because it's so close to the election, maybe that can help move the needle when it comes to some of these Democrats who are running for re-election. Because as of right now, you have Democrats who are supporting the student loan, at least $10,000, the cancellation. Republicans are on the other side. They're not supporting that as of right now. Okay, next thing I want to talk about, stimulus checks. Now I know that the forced stimulus check, everybody was hearing, oh, there's going to be a forced stimulus check. You had a lot of politicians coming out and saying they support a forced stimulus check. You had letters going to the president from Congress saying that they support a forced stimulus check and that the president should support it as well. Now, the president has not made a promise about a forced stimulus check, but the president has shown some openness to a forced stimulus check. We'll just call it that. And so as of right now, they're not talking about a forced stimulus check. They haven't been talking about a forced stimulus check in almost a year now, okay? And so that leads me to believe that that's off the table. That doesn't mean it's off the table forever, but I just think as of right now, because you're not hearing politicians talk about it, and because the White House is kind of pulled back, and initially the White House said, you know, it's going to be up to Congress in order to move forward with another stimulus check. And Congress was eager, and then Congress just kind of stopped talking about it. And so that's where we are right now. Because we're dealing with inflation, it's very hard for Congress to justify a forced stimulus check as of right now. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't suffering, because people are suffering, especially with inflation through the roof. But the fear is that if we have another stimulus, if we're stimulating the economy even more, that might drive inflation even higher, which would mean that if you go to the grocery store right now and let's say eggs are $4, and then we stimulate the economy even more with stimulus checks and maybe some help for businesses, more funding, then guess what will happen is that price of eggs will go up even higher, because now people have more money in their pockets, which means they can spend more money on eggs. And I'm using eggs as an example, but this could be anything, any type of a product. So when it comes down to it, that is the fear when it comes to adding a stimulus check to things. Now, gas rebate, that's another thing that's been promised. Looks like on the state level, you have some states that are working on implementing that, but when it comes down to the federal government, initially they said, yes, we should do something about this. And then now they've kind of pulled off of it a little bit. So we don't know exactly where they're going to go when it comes to that. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about is the child tax credit. Now the child tax credit, actually, they had it implemented for 6 months. So people were receiving these monthly payments for 6 months, but then it expired, and then the promise was that they were going to extend it. That did not happen. Okay, so now we're looking at a situation where it has not been extended, and politicians have really stopped talking about this as well. Now, this is one thing that I think could be a bipartisan bill. I think this child tax credit could be bipartisan because you do have some Republican senators that are interested, are on board for a child tax credit or something similar to a child tax credit. So this is something that could work, but we'll have to see what they do when it comes to the future. But the child tax credit, out of all these things that I've talked about, I think the child tax credit has the best possibility of being extended. We won't even say extended at this point because we've already moved into way past the time where they'll say, okay, we'll do retroactive. We're looking at a situation where if they do implement another child tax credit, they're not going to go back and start from January and move forward. They would just continue. So maybe if they can get something done by July, then you'll have it just like it was last year, where from July until December, you get those monthly payments, and then they'll reevaluate it in January. So that might be something that we're looking at when it comes to a child tax credit. But I think the child tax credit has the best possibility of moving forward. And the only other thing that I'll say here is student loans. I think student loan cancellation has a good possibility. Maybe sometime in August, we might see the president move forward with an executive order to cancel $10,000 or so when it comes to student loans. Now the other things here, the stimulus checks, like I said, because politicians aren't talking about it, because we're looking at inflation right now, I can't really see the real possibility of a stimulus check. I think the best bet when it comes to any type of a stimulus, it's going to be some type of gas rebate. And that might have to be done state by state because it looks like the federal government has kind of backed off from the gas rebate. It was a real hot button issue a few weeks ago when gas prices were at an all-time high, and they're still at all-time high, but they're starting to level off and come back down. And so maybe Congress is just not seeing that urgency anymore. So we'll have to follow that and see where it goes. But as you can see, a lot of promises have been made, and not all those promises have been kept, that's for sure. And looking at this list, these are a list of things promises that politicians did not move forward with. And we have the midterm election coming up, so this is the time to hold politicians accountable for what they're doing and what they're not doing. And so we'll have to follow everything and see where it goes. I just wanted to kind of give you guys an update when it comes down to the promises that were made and not kept. If you guys have any questions, or if I missed anything, if I missed any promises, let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.